What I want to know is how does one get involved in doing rock work as a woman? Do you really, really want to know? Or do you just want the rehearsed response that I always give? What would happen if we chose to really tell the truth about ourselves? Like if we really, really just told the real truth of our lives. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's my truth.
You're listening to Hammered.
Playing basketball and playing all the sports, lettering in 5 sports. And, here's the thing. I didn't really even like sports that much. I was good at them. And I played them in the neighborhood. And I could fucking play football like a boy. I knew how to call out a quarterback's, demands, down, set, hut. I mean, I could do all that because I'd watched enough of it on TV. I could imitate things. And my dad took me and signed me up for basketball when I was in the 3rd grade. And when we got there, I was bigger in structure than the other kids. And I was 8 years old. And they said, well, she's pretty big. Why don't we put her on this older group of girls team? And I got put on the, I think it was the 12-year-old girls team. And these girls, man, they were already pre-teens. And I remember them using Nair hair remover, and they would slap it around in the locker room. And it was real weird. And they were, already shaving their legs and cussing. And I wasn't emotionally ready for them. And that seemed to be kind of a beginning of a trend of being sort of the youngest and kind of getting thrown into situations where there were people a little bit older and a little bit more experienced and a little more rough around the edges and just kind of going with it. Okay, well, this is, I guess, what you do. And I got into sports early on, and I was painfully shy. I was so shy, it was horrible. But the sporting thing carried me through high school and helped me create friendships and bonds with other kids, other girls. And I was able to get a few scholarships to get me to college. Just an all-American girl. When I took the job at the ice cream business, I didn't realize that it was a 7-day-a-week job. And that was stressful. And to have any kind of social life at 19 years old or 20 years old was really cramping my style. So the ice cream guys, with the exception of Regina, were starting to become my social life. And I got a little more comfortable on my routes, and the money started to come in a little bit. And, on this commercial route, I started thinking, these adults have more money than kids. And how can I take advantage of that? How can I work this in a way to really, to bring in more cash? And so one day I saw that Honda had a warehouse and a building, and I figured it out that their break time was 2:15, and I backed up to that loading dock and just rang the hell out of the bell, and all these people came out and they looked kind of puzzled, and they started buying ice cream. Well, each day it would increase, and I wore my Levi's shorts and my cutoff shirt, and I was kind of a looker back then for guys and girls. So, hey, I had both worlds coming at me. And I could turn it on a little bit, and I started making relationships with people, and I started realizing that this is not about the damn ice cream. This is about connection and contact, and and I'd ask people questions and compliment, and I started having to learn how to get out of my shell and get out of this transfixed self-consciousness that I always had. And I remember this one group it was a screen printing company, and this whole group of gay girls came out. And, they were probably about the same age as me, and maybe one was a little older who was kind of like their supervisor or whatever, but they kind of giggled and were kind of talkative, and there was this one that would kind of stand in the background, and she reminded me of that lead singer in Journey, Stephen Perry. She had kind of a pointed face and real shy, real weird and withdrawn, and of course, I always feel sorry for the underdog, so I would try to make conversation with her, and she would shy away and get her ice cream and run, and they'd run back in. And so I was starting to meet different people, and kind of, I was getting the regulars. And I think that was important. So if I had the regulars and I created this base, this core group that would buy every day, then I would, hopefully they would tell their friends, and I could network it to create more business. And so, and then of course, when I would hit the residentials, then I would start getting the kids a little more used to me, and their little faces. You could read kids' energy by their little faces and their expressions, and I could see little smiles starting to come through, and I would be silly, and I could be silly around the kids. I couldn't be as silly around adults, but I just started, being silly with them, and I remember that song, Mickey, and I would turn into this the one trailer park, and I had a boom box in the floor. I'd finally gotten some music because there was no radio in there, and I remember turning it up, and I turned up the tape, oh, Mickey, see, you're so fine, you blow my mind, hey Mickey. Well, I would play the bell, I would ring the bell to this tune, doom 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 doom, hey Mickey. And the kids would just laugh their heads off. Well, then they started, do the Mickey Mouse. They called it the Mickey Mouse, which is not Mickey Mouse, but they would scream, do the Mickey Mouse. And I would sing it and play it. And so I started getting these little, fun things happening that would attract them even more. And of course, there wasn't a whole lot more money, but then the parents started coming out, and they started talking to me. And then by Liberty Heights, Lord, I was becoming the therapist for some of these mamas and daddies. And, I'd make my way through. Well, this one particular night, I'd get to that last house and those two little girls, and I would just, there's something about those little girls that would just break my heart. Well, this one night I'm coming up through there, and I shine those lights, and they were always last. And I felt so bad because they were always last, but they would wait, and they were both standing there. And the one little girl, the older girl, she had this Schlitz tall boy in her hand. And I was like, what is she doing? And when I pulled up, she said, my daddy asked if we could give you this to give us ice cream. And I said, oh, okay, like a trade. And she said, yeah. And I said, okay. And so I let them pick out what they wanted, and I took the tall boy, and of course I popped it open, and it was my last house, and I drank it on the way back to the shop. And so this started a routine, and then all of a sudden, you'd have a dad come out there, and he'd have a joint like over his ear, like kind of tucked under in his ear, and he would say, hey, do you ever trade? And then he'd kind of take his finger and point up to his ear like I'm fucking stupid and I don't see it. And he would trade me a joint for, his kids to get an ice cream. So I was starting to rack up on a few various novelties for myself. And and then I would get back to the shop, and then there would be all the misfits. And I remember this one night, they said, "Hey, you want to go down to the Holiday Inn Lounge?" And I'm like, "Ooh, really?" And of course I said yes. And we went down to the Holiday Inn Lounge, and there I am in the booth with these guys. Now this is new to me because I was not a girl. I had always been around the girls, and I'd been in sports, I'd been on teams, I'd been around mostly gay girls, and just kind of never had the exposure to men like this, young men. And they really liked me for some reason, and nobody knew I was gay. I never talked about that. Back then, you didn't talk about that stuff. That was just something you just keep on the low down, and that's a whole nother life. But I remember sitting in that low candlelight and listening to these guys talk, and I remember thinking, maybe I'll just go straight. Maybe I'll just be straight, and maybe one of them will like me, and then I won't have to have this taboo lifestyle that I have. Maybe it can just disappear, and I'll just change all of that, and I'll be straight and have a boyfriend and be regular, and my parents will like me. And so it became a nightly thing for us to go somewhere. And I remember a place called the Rusty Nail and Dudley's, oh God, and biker bars, and this one weird place we went had telephones on every table, and it was kind of a seedy, dark, kind of weird place, and you could call other tables on the phone and talk to them, and it was kind of a way to, I guess, meet people or pick up people. It was kind of fucked up. But anyway, I just was there for the ride, and I just, I was trying to understand how I was going to make a living, and this seemed like a joke. The whole thing seemed like a joke. And I remember coming in one night, and instead of Chris behind the window, this time it was this guy, and his name was Don, and he had a thin mustache, and he was kind of greasy, and he was kind of good looking, but he had a weird body, like his clothes were tight. He had one of those kind of guys' bodies that he probably never worked out, but he always had a good body, a good physique. But now that he was in his 30s, it was kind of like his clothes were getting tight, and he was probably real soft. He probably didn't have much muscle, but he still kind of was dressing like he probably did in high school. And he had these big pores, like he had some acne scars, and he just kind of had a way, and his hair was parted in the middle, and he'd shake his head back. He always had this habit. In the 70s, wings were real popular with hairstyles, and he'd run his fingers through his hair and then shake his head, and he had a real arrogant way about him. And I'm like, who's that guy? And they're like, oh, that's Don. He's the branch manager. The branch manager. And I'm like, ooh, he must be, a boss. So I was kind of quiet around him, and he'd take my money and shake it in there and, count it out. And then he'd always stand there real official and count the way he counted your money back and handed it to you, like, here's your part. And he'd say, so that's pretty good. I guess that's, room for improvement. That's pretty good. And I always felt like, I never did well enough in his eyes. And so then I would kind of watch him, and how when Regina would come in, he would kind of flirt with her, and she'd kind of flirt back. And I was like, ooh, I thought, is she going to like him? Like, gross. But, like I said, there was something about him. He was like, I guess he would be the epitome of like a bad boy, which always makes me want to throw up. Like, I just never, ever understood women that went after like these wormy, slimy, bad boy types, kind of like Sharon Stone in Casino and James Wood. She always kept him on the back burner, even though she was married or was with Robert De Niro. She had James Wood always bailing him out and helping him because that was where her heart was, and I guess it was like one of these like dysfunctional attractions, where if you've got the abusive father, the alcoholic father, then you're attracted to some freaking wife beater type. I don't know. But all those things would go through my mind as I'd watch their communication. And it was just such a interesting microscopic tunnel into a world that I had never seen. And then I showed up and I'm there to get my ice cream loaded, and out comes this really tall, big guy, looked like a big old football player. And his name was Greg. And I'm like, well, where's Black Greg? He goes, I'm the other freezer manager. They were co-freezer managers. Well, this guy, he was big and like a big old bear, and he had like a big smile, and he looked like John Elway, that quarterback on the Denver Broncos, and cute, kind of cute face and smiling and real friendly. And so he had a big coat on, which made him even bigger, but he would go in there and get the stuff. He goes, where's your route? And I told him, and he was cheerful, and I liked him. And I thought, what is it about the freezer managers that makes them nice? Because some of the other people are real assholes, but they were super nice. And once again, he would always make sure I had everything. And then he started slipping me a box of, Fruity Patooties or a high dollar item. And he'd say, here's an extra 3-stage bomb pop, and I would be like laughing because it would be like a free box, a free case. And I would add that to my inventory. And then I think, well, that's pure profit because I didn't have to pay for that. And I'm not, but you never paid for anything. You never, they were fronting you this freezer up, full of ice cream. And so I guess if you ever left the ice cream business, then you would have to cash out and pay them. I'm not sure what was going to happen, but I would get it and go and be grateful for it. And then I started realizing there were all these women on my commercial route that didn't, they were, oh, I better not. That's too fattening. That's too much sugar. And there was no consciousness back then around healthy eating. Not really. I guess if you ate a salad, that was like healthy eating. But Dole had come out with this 100% fruit bar. And we had these samples one day, and they were just Dole fruit bars, strawberry, pineapple, and they were killer. They were really good. Well, I sold out of those immediately, and they were $2 a piece. Lord, honey, that's a high dollar item. And the women bought them. And so I started scrounging through grocery stores because these were only samples that we got, and they weren't going to carry them in our company. I think the price point was too high. So I found these things in grocery stores, and they were smaller. They were in a smaller size, but I went ahead and stuck my neck out and bought me a case of those and as a prototype to see if I could sell them. Well, I'd sell out of them. So then I started buying them more and more. I'd clean out the grocery stores and throw them in my truck, and I'd mark them up to like $4 a piece. And that way I started making profit on those. And then the women, the word of mouth traveled. She's got diet ice cream. Diet ice cream is pure fucking sugar. But the thing is there was no fat. And so it was kind of this no fat item that really made a statement. Well, once I got the women out there, and I got to meet them and talk to them, and then it was a connection, and then the connection would be another connection, and then one day I come by and there was this really beautiful African American woman, and she'd been buying an ice cream from me every day, and she was one of the last people on the commercial route, right around 4, and this one day she said, hold on a minute. I'm going to see if my husband wants something. And she turns around and she goes, Hank, do you want an ice cream? And this man, this African-American, handsome-looking man comes walking up, and he was wearing a suit. And it was Hank Aaron. It was fucking Henry Aaron. 744, home run king. My jaw dropped. And he smiled at me, and he looked at the menu board, and he goes, yeah, I think I'll take an Eskimo pie. And I was shaking, and I thought, oh my God, and I wanted so bad. I wanted so bad to say, I had your Louisville Slugger baseball bat with your signature carved on it. I watched you hit those home runs. I used to come, my daddy had a picture of you from the gas station. And they used to, Pure Oil gas station used to give away portraits of you and Joe Torre and Orlando Cepeda. And I collected those. I wanted to say all this stuff, and I could not say a word. I was frozen. I was just stuck. And so I got the Eskimo pie, and I handed out the window, and he smiled at me, and I smiled at him, and I wanted his autograph. I wanted to know him. I wanted to talk to him, and they walked away, and I sat down in my seat, and I had to get my breath, and it just took me by surprise. And I'd never in my life met anybody that was like important and had done something that was larger than life. And it just blew my mind. And I thought, I really am starting to like this job.
Hammered is recorded and produced in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. It's narrated by Jill Haynie, produced by Maggie Briggs and Jill Haynie, and with sound design, editing, and music by Alexander Rodriguez. Our beautiful artwork was created by Lauren Caddick, and we'd like to send a special thanks out there to Minnie and Robin. You can check out our website, podcasthammered.com, and follow us on social media for updates.